on the plane coming here, because I do feel like, yeah, I think we gotta change the narrative.
For years, Milan Harris didn't say a word. Not when the blogs tried to label her Meek Mill's side chick. Not when they found out she was pregnant. Not when the relationship ended and he moved on. She kept it clean, focused on her fashion brand, and made it clear she wasn't here for the clout. But behind the scenes, insiders say Milan was holding on to something heavier than a breakup. Because while she was loving Meek in public, she was allegedly learning about something in private. Something that made her question the very machine behind his success. Sources close to Milan say that during her years with Meek, especially as his fame grew and his legal troubles turned into political capital, she started hearing things. Whispers, patterns, names, alleged rituals that newcomers were expected to endure if they wanted to make it in the industry. The phrase that kept coming up, training sessions. Now, on the surface, it sounds harmless. Artists get trained all the time, like vocal lessons, branding, media prep, but that's not what this was. According to people in Milan's circle, training was code for something else entirely. A behind closed doors initiation process designed not to build, but to break. To test loyalty, blur boundaries, and lock artists, especially women, into a system of control. And Milan, she allegedly found herself closer to it than she ever wanted to be. No, she's never claimed Meek participated. She hasn't accused him of doing anything directly. But those same insiders say she couldn't ignore the fact that he knew. And if you think this is just another Diddy video, think again. What was suggested was Meek Mill had seen things, that he was in the rooms, or at least close enough to the men who ran them. And now, she's not trying to burn it all down, but she's not holding back either, because according to what we're hearing, Milan's finally ready to talk. Not for drama, not for revenge, but because she believes there are women still going through it, still being trained by the same system that turned her silence into protection.
Yeah, I feel like we were in a struggle, but we didn't know that we were in a struggle. I feel like when you're in it, sometimes you don't understand until you get out of it. It was just what we knew.
Milan's introduction to the music world didn't come through the usual path. She wasn't an aspiring rapper or singer looking for a record deal. She was a designer, the mind behind Milano di Rouge, a streetwear brand that had already caught the attention of celebrities before she ever met Meek. That independence is what made her different from a lot of women in the orbit of a rising rap star. She didn't need Meek's fame to validate her, but when they connected, she stepped into his world, and with it, into an industry culture she hadn't been exposed to before. It started small. A conversation at an after party she wasn't supposed to overhear. A joke that didn't land right. Comments from men in positions of power about testing new artists, followed by smirks that told her it wasn't about music. And at first she brushed it off. Every industry has its ugly side, right? But the more time she spent around certain circles, the more that phrase came up, training sessions. It was never explained in full, but it didn't need to be. According to people close to Milan, she began to piece it together through fragments. A young woman she met backstage once, shaking and clearly upset, said she'd been through it, but didn't want to talk. A stylist warning her to never leave certain rooms alone. And a conversation Meek allegedly had with another artist where the words, "it's just part of the game," were thrown around casually. Nobody ever sat Milan down and told her outright, this is what happens. But she's a sharp observer. She connected the dots. And the picture that formed wasn't one she could unsee. From what insiders claim, these sessions weren't just about coercion. They were about leverage. Breaking someone early so they'd always be compliant later. Putting them in situations that could be recorded, used against them, or simply shamed into silence. And the power players? Allegedly, it wasn't just random execs. Some were men whose names appear in Billboard every year. Producers with plaques on their walls. Artists who act like mentors in public, but allegedly play gatekeepers in private.
My mom, she had my sister at 15. She dropped out of high school. She ended up going back and getting her GED, and she went to college to become a registered nurse. And I was telling my followers that because she made that sacrifice, it allowed me to dream. And I said, whoever is...
Milan never accused Meek of bringing women into these spaces, but sources say she believed he knew they existed and that he chose not to speak on it. Whether out of fear, self-preservation, or loyalty to the wrong people, she didn't know. But to her, silence in the face of abuse was still complicity. For a while, she kept her head down, worked on her brand, focused on her pregnancy. Publicly, she was just Meek's girlfriend. Privately, she was learning just how much power moves through the industry and how much of it is built on intimidation. And the deeper she got into his his world, the more those whispers started sounding like warnings meant for her too. If you've never been in the music industry, training session sounds harmless, like an artist development workshop, image consulting, choreography, maybe a little media training. But according to whispers Milan allegedly picked up on, that's just the polite term. But behind closed doors, training meant something else entirely. It was a test, not of talent, but of obedience. And it started the moment someone showed interest in signing you. From what insiders have described to her over the years, it usually went like this. A newcomer gets invited to a meeting after hours. No big crowd, just a few people, always someone with power, and always enough others around to make it look normal. There'd be alcohol, sometimes, and the tone would shift from casual to suggestive before the artist even realized what was happening. The initiation could take many forms. For some, it was being pressured into intimate encounters with people they barely knew, sometimes with more than one person in the room. Others were made to perform degrading acts, all under the guise of breaking you in or seeing if you can handle the lifestyle. And according to the stories Milan allegedly heard, these sessions were almost always recorded, not like a polished music video shoot, more like grainy, handheld footage that could be pulled out later if someone ever stepped out of line. The unspoken message was clear: you belong to us now. The people orchestrating this, allegedly not just shadowy handlers no one's heard of, some were industry veterans, label executives, well-known artists who present themselves as mentors in public, but behind the scenes were playing gatekeepers in the most predatory way possible. In some cases, these sessions weren't even about direct abuse. They were about psychological control, getting artists to witness things they weren't supposed to see, so they'd carry that knowledge like a weight. Once you've been in a room where careers are traded like chips and someone's dignity is treated like currency, you either play along or you disappear. Take MIA, for example. She allegedly endured some of this and her career went south down under.
Plastic surgery. I'm not insecure because I would have got plastic surgery. People make it, they all can turn around and thank Beyonce because that's it. And enough is enough. I'm fucking coming for everyone now. And even
now, Milan never claimed to be a victim of these sessions herself, but sources say she became hyper-aware of when they were happening around her. She allegedly noticed certain women showing up bright-eyed to events, then returning days later looking hollow. She noticed young male artists who used to talk back in meetings suddenly turning into yes men overnight. The scariest part? Once someone was in the system, there was no getting out clean. You might make it as a star, but every big move came with the knowledge that the wrong person could pull the plug or the footage at any time. And in the years Milan spent close to Meek, she allegedly saw enough to know it wasn't just one label or one clique running this. It was bigger than that, a network, a code. And for those who wanted in, the price wasn't talent, it was submission. From the outside, Milan's life during those years looked like a win. She was building Milano di Rouge into a respected streetwear brand. She was dating one of the biggest rappers in the world. She had a growing following, celebrity clients, and eventually a child on the way. But the version the public saw wasn't the whole picture. And according to people close to her, Milan was aware of just how dangerous it could be. To talk about what she'd allegedly learned. The training sessions weren't just dirty secrets. They were part of a system run by people with enough money and influence to make problems disappear. Careers could end, reputations could be shredded, and in the worst cases, personal safety could be at risk. Milan had seen how quickly someone could be erased from the industry's memory. One bad headline, one viral rumor, and you're done. If she started speaking while she was still in Meek's orbit, she risked not only her own future, but his as well. Whether or not he was directly involved, she knew his ties to powerful people meant that her words could land like a grenade. Then there was the personal side. Milan was pregnant. Her priority shifted to protecting her son before he was even born. That meant stability, not chaos. It meant staying out of drama. She kept her head down, ran her business, and avoided giving anyone a reason to paint her as the bitter ex or the troublemaker. Friends say she convinced herself it was better to let it go, better to pretend it didn't exist than to become a target. But things change. Over the past few years, more women in entertainment have started speaking up. Stories that once would have been dismissed as gossip are now taken seriously, especially since Diddy got arrested and then released. From R&B singers to pop stars, the pattern has become harder to ignore. Sudden fame, sudden silence, unexplained breakdowns, and NDAs that bury the truth. In Milan, she allegedly started noticing a disturbing familiarity in some of those accounts. Different industries, different faces, but the same tactics she'd heard about, the same kind of of initiation dressed up as opportunity. What pushed her over the edge, insiders say, wasn't something that happened to her. It was seeing younger women being courted by the same crowd, watching them post from studios and parties she knew too well, hearing them use the same language she once heard whispered in passing. For years, she'd told herself she didn't need to get involved, that it wasn't her fight. But becoming a mother changes your perspective. Suddenly, the thought of someone's daughter, or one day her own child, stepping into that same room wasn't just troubling, it was unbearable. She hasn't come out guns blazing, she hasn't named names, but the way she started speaking, carefully, deliberately, tells you one thing. She's not going to protect this system forever.
It's a blessing to be fearless. It's a blessing to not fear anything and just know that every obstacle I'm faced with, I'm going.
The thing about Milan's alleged account is this. It doesn't sound isolated. If you've been following the music industry long enough, you've seen the pattern. Artists show up with raw talent and big dreams only to change overnight. Some get their big break and disappear just as quickly. Others stay, but they're not the same. The spark's gone, replaced with a kind of guarded compliance. Why did Britney Spears go nuts after her conservatorship ended? What's really wrong with Justin Bieber? Is Ariana Grande really going to pretend everything is just fine? And when are we going to have a real conversation about Kanye West if people chalk it up to fame changing you? But what if it's something else? Insiders have been hinting at a shadow system for years, not just in hip hop and pop R&B, even Hollywood, a network of executives, producers, and insiders who allegedly control access to opportunity. You want the record deal, the movie role, the sponsorship, then you play their game. And the game allegedly looks a lot like what Milan's circle says she learned about. Coercive training sessions designed to test loyalty through humiliation, manipulation, and sometimes outright exploitation. The alleged goal isn't just to satisfy the powerful, it's to keep newcomers dependent. Once someone's compromised, they're easier to control. A career built on someone else's terms is a career you can never truly own. It's not just whispers either. Look at the history. In the last decade alone, multiple lawsuits have alleged sexual coercion in exchange for contracts or protection. Several high-profile music moguls have been accused of running freak-off parties where young artists are invited under one pretense and pressured into another. And almost every time, the accusations fade after settlements or get buried under NDAs. For someone like Milan, who wasn't an aspiring artist herself, this meant she could move in and out of these spaces without being a direct target. But that didn't mean she was blind. She allegedly saw how the system closed in on those without her independence. The singers who couldn't afford to walk away, the producers desperate for a placement, the dancers willing to do what it takes just to stay on tour. And this is where her connection to Meek becomes significant. Meek's rise wasn't just about hit records. It was tied to powerful labels, influential cosigns, and a network that reached far beyond Philadelphia. Being in his circle put Milan close enough to see both the glamorous surface and the machinery underneath. By speaking even cautiously, she's putting a spotlight on a culture that thrives in the shadows, a culture where branded as just the industry, where silence is rewarded and where the wrong step can end more than just a career. And whether her voice sparks a bigger conversation or gets drowned out like so many before her will depend on how much people are willing to believe that the music they love is built on more than beats and rhymes. Because if what she's alleging is true, then training sessions aren't just rumors. They're the price of admission.